Welcome to Cascade Church. We exist to love God, love people, and live generously. We are a church committed to being followers of Jesus and being disciples who make more disciples. We have services in person here in Monroe at 8, 9:30, and 11:15 a.m. every Sunday, so come and join us. Please open your Bible as we dive into the next week of our current series.
All right, good morning, Cascade. How we doing? You are not yet hot. You had about 15 minutes because summer is here, summer is coming. You're gonna feel it. I've got what we call in the South a spirit rag, specifically for bald people. So if you need to borrow this mid-service, let me know. I'll share it with you. Might not be a good idea. But I'm excited. I'm excited for this series. I'm excited for summer. I am excited for the heat. I love the heat. I love where we're going, and I love this new series, His Way of Wisdom. What is wisdom? Open up with me to the book of Proverbs. I hope you have your Bibles with you. Open them up. We live and breathe the Word of God, and this series is going to be so profound with that. I want to read to you from Robert Frost, though, first. I love this poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down as far I could. This famous poem, this tale of two roads, two paths, two ways, opens with a man standing right here in the crossroads, looking at these two ways and acknowledging the impossibility to be on both paths at one time. You've got to make a choice. There are two paths before you in life. So it is important which way you take, because that will direct your destiny in life. In this poem, you can feel the weight and the gravity of making this choice. And for many of us, we can probably feel it. I think we often find ourselves at this crossroad, right? I know for me, what is it? It's 24, so 12 years ago, when my family and I were living in Georgia in December, we were plotting a course and we were setting our destination to the state of Washington. I don't know if you know a lot about geography, but Georgia and Washington, we have never traveled that far. Traveling with a 26-foot trailer with a vehicle in tow, my wife in the minivan, with 3 young children, 10, 8, and soon to be 6, and 2 dogs. We were thinking, all right, cross-country trip, this is gonna be amazing. Everyone dreams on doing this, see the sights, it's gonna be exciting. It was awful. Bar none, one of the most stressful experiences that we have ever experienced, partially because we were doing it in December. And if you go back and look at the weather in 2012, that was when one of the biggest storms was coming through. So as we were moving across the country, we were watching this winter storm come and gather together. And we found ourselves at many crossroads, but one that was the most memorable. We were going to sleep one night, studying the next day of travel, and it began with a mountain pass. And us being from Georgia, we didn't know chains were a thing. What do you do? What do chains in vehicles? What do you break windows with chains? You actually drive on chains? How does this work? We went and we picked up chains, and my wife, God bless her soul, I love her. She is an amazing person when it comes to studying and building schedules and looking to the future and plotting courses. And one of the things that she does to an OCD level on this trip is she would look at these mountain passes and watch video after video after video of 16-wheelers losing traction and flying off the side of the road. So she has been watching this one particular mountain pass that we were about to go over, and she went to sleep in tears, looking at me, holding me, and saying, Michael, tomorrow is the life that our family goes off the road. Woke up in tears. We are dying today. And I'm doing the typical man thing, right? Like you do it with roller coasters. People have survived in the past. How would we, of all people, fall and die in this? It'll be fine. It'll be okay. And then she started giving me more facts and showing me more videos. And I was like, we got chains. I don't know what to do with chains, but we'll use the chains. So I started to put the chains on the tires, and I was trying to figure out how to make it work. And all of a sudden, this light tap on my shoulder, and I looked up, and there was a woman there, and she was looking at me. She said, "Hey, you look like you need help." And I said, "Thank you for making me feel less like a man, but I am desperate for some help. So can you help me?" She got down, started to help, and she was like, "You know what? Someone gave you the wrong chains. I work at Le Schwab right down the street." This was like a providential moment. And all that to say, at the very beginning of the trip, we prayed Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 every day. We thought it was cute. Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. We thought it was cute. Jesus, make our path straight as we go across. But this morning, it was Jesus, we need a new path. She directed us to Le Schwab. And we go in, and I'm talking to the people at the counter. Said, "Hey, I've got the wrong chains. Can you give me chains for this 26-foot trailer? Can you give me chains for the van?" And they're helping me. And he was looking outside, and he saw my wife crying. These kids with their faces on the window, like, "Oh, we're gonna die." And he was just like, "This doesn't look. The past is really bad. I don't need to hear that." My wife comes in, and that just amps everything else up. She's literally weeping, and I'm like, we just need to go. We just need to do it. Fully convinced myself, okay, maybe we are gonna die. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice come out from the side of the store. "There is another way." And I turn, and I see this almost decrepit little old man standing in the corner, and I'm like, oh, words of wisdom. If you know another way, you said, yes. Most people take the past because not many people know there is another way, and it is going to add hours and hours and hours on your trip, and it's not a glamorous drive, but you can find a way around. And I was like, that's fine. We needed another way, and that day, God led us and made our path straight. Now, in that moment, there's a lot of things that I could, at that crossroad, have said, I need this. I need better chains, and that will change everything. I need maybe some skills, maybe some just give me some tips, some life hacks on driving on the road and not falling off and dying. More than anything, right now, I just need some life hacks. More than anything, I need a chauffeur, someone to drive my car for me, someone to drive my wife's car for her. That's what I need most in life. But what I actually needed, the one thing I needed that changed everything, was wisdom. And right now, we find ourselves going into summer at a crossroads. I don't know what yours looks like. Together as a culture, as a society, we're sitting at a crossroads, and it's all over the headlines. What do we need most? Which politician do we need most? Who is the right answer? And after watching the debate last week and seeing two old men argue over their golf scores, I'm just left kind of like, I'm not sure what the right answer is here. What is the right thing? What do we need most as a country? Is it the right leader? There's a lot of things we could point to. I need a raise at work. If I could just get a raise, that would change everything. Right now, going into summer, what I need most, and I'm looking forward to, is just some time off. I need to recreate. I need to refresh. I need to just chill for a little bit. What I need most right now is just some time off. Others of us sitting here today in the midst of tragedy, maybe sickness or death, we're like, if the doctors could just give me, or if I could just have my wife or child back, if this could happen. There are so many things that we could fill in that blank as we look at these paths and say, if I could only have this. But what Solomon says to us throughout the book of Proverbs is you can't fill in that blank with so many different things. If you have wisdom, wisdom will help you flourish in every season of life. You can't change your circumstance. But with wisdom, you can flourish in the good seasons and the hard seasons, amidst tragedy and amidst the good times. And that's what we find as we open up this book that is written by King Solomon. The first verse says, the Proverbs, the wise sayings of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Solomon found himself at a crossroads at a young age, being given the keys to the kingdom. With all the money, with all the power, with all the influence and success. Here it is, it's all yours. And he was looking at leading and he was thinking, you know what? My great-grandfather Saul was awful at this. He wrecked the kingdom. I don't want to be like Saul. But my dad, King David, man, known as the man after God's own heart, like he did a good job. I don't want to be like this, but I don't know if I can fill the shoes of my father as king of Israel. So he's sitting here and he's like, what do I need in this blank? Do I need a great army? Do I need some great documents and laws and letters to like help guide our politics and the culture around me? Do I need the right policy? What do I need? What Solomon found, and you can read about this in 1 Kings chapter 3, as he was asleep at night and standing before God with the stress and the weight of the kingdom on his shoulders, he stood before God, and God said, ask anything and I will give it to you. And in that moment, Solomon said, what I need more than anything is wisdom. Because if I have wisdom, I won't wreck the kingdom like Saul did. And if I have wisdom, maybe I can fill the shoes of my father. If I have wisdom, that will change and help everything. So he was standing at the crossroads and he asked for wisdom. And God said, since you asked for wisdom, then it will be through wisdom that you will find flourishing in all circumstances. And that's what we read as we read about his life in 1 Kings. And we go on to read, well, what is the Proverbs about? It is a book to help us know wisdom and instruction. Wisdom. Wisdom is more than just a word. As we read through this, like even right here in this short little account, think of the many different words that Solomon uses for wisdom. And look at the many different applications of wisdom. So not only what is wisdom, but all that wisdom impacts. He says to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealings. And look at all of these applications in righteousness, in justice, and equity. To give prudence, literally to give wisdom to the simple, and knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands to obtain guidance. So many different words to explain the depth and the breadth of what wisdom is and the impact that it has. It's almost as if Solomon is holding up the prism of wisdom and letting a light shine through it, and then it diffracts, and then all of these other words describing wisdom and an impact comes out of it. And Solomon saying wisdom is more than a word. It's more than just knowledge. It's more than just knowledge. You know that really, really smart person that may have a lot of intellect but can barely tie a shoe, right? That person that has a lot of book smarts, or he's really honed in on one specific area, but outside of that area, his life's a little bit of a wreck. Okay, his name was Einstein. Einstein, like you would go to him if you want to understand the ins and outs of science and how science brings things together, and understanding gravity and space and E equals MC squared and all these other things that I have no understanding for. You would go to him for that, but you would not go to him for friendship advice. His friendships were always up and down. You wouldn't necessarily go to him for work ethic or really even moral ethic in the world. He thought religion, he thought the word of God, Jewish or Christian, he thought it was child's play. He thought it was childish. Have no time for that. So you wouldn't necessarily go to him to understand morality and how morality is applied. And Einstein never wrote the first book on marriage because his were awful. As intelligent as he was, he fell in love with this first girl because they connected with the minds and they were so entrenched in discovering things together, and he moved towards marriage. I'm going to marry you, and as I'm marrying you, I'm looking at this other girl that's actually a little more attractive than you. You've got the great brains, but she's got the beauty, so my marriage will be dissolved as I chase this beauty, and now I'm committing to this beauty. And it wasn't long before that beauty just wasn't catching his eye anymore, and he found another and another and another, and the wife he ended up with just had to kind of say, hey, I'm just one of the many that are now in the past and in the future. Not many premarital books were written by Einstein because he had knowledge, but wisdom is more than knowledge. The word wisdom, what he uses here, chokmah means skill. And it was first used in Exodus, the skill of working with fabric. So it's not just the knowledge of clothes and fabric and how to bring materials together, but it was how do I use these materials and bring these materials together in many different contexts to do many different things. It's more than just knowledge when I take these fabrics and weave them together and create this thick curtain that separates the Holy of Holies, a screen, a curtain like you've never seen before that emanates and exudes and tells a story of the holiness of God. And then just another application, you go to the courtroom, the king's room, and these beautiful drapery that flows throughout the courtroom that speaks of justice and authority and royalty. And then the king's clothes and the priest's clothes, two different settings, but knowing how to bring fabric together to do more than just put clothes on someone's body or clothes up on the curtain, using these skills to communicate life. It's more than just knowledge. There's so many complexities, and that's why he uses so many words to describe wisdom as well as the application of wisdom, because it's complicated. It takes skill and a finesse, and you know it when you see it. You know it when someone dresses really well and it says something, and you know it when someone don't. I don't have that gift, but you know it when you see someone, they're like, wow, they know how to decorate a house. They know how to dress like it says something. You know it with musicians, right? I don't know how many of you watch The Voice, but you see this happen over and over again where there will be someone singing on stage and the judges, their seats are turned. They're not looking at it. They're listening for something. And so many times that person who is singing all the right notes. They know what they're doing, but something is missing. Even though they're hitting the right notes, they're missing the finesse. They're missing the inflection. They're missing the ability to apply that musical knowledge in a skillful way that brings people alive and turn judges' seats around. You know it when you see a work of art. Last week, I had that piece of art ending the service. Like, there's so many things that you look at, and it's more than just the artist being able to paint a picture of a person. Artists can do that, and it's not impressive. What is impressive is when that art comes alive and you look at it, and everything in you is like captivated, and you see it, and you feel it, and you know what the artist is trying to express. You see what I'm saying? You know wisdom and the skill of wisdom when you see it. With dancers, another skill I don't have, but I know it when I see it. I sat down with my wife. I walked in and she was watching a documentary, and part of the documentary was about these TikTokers that made it their business to do dance on TikTok. So I sat down, I saw this, and I said, babe, this is dumb. These people are idiots. They're wasting their time, right? Sorry, it's not my thing. I think it looks pretty ridiculous. And we kept watching it, and it wasn't long before one of them was showing a dance, and I was just kind of like, all right, I'm feeling it, right? And all of a sudden their movements were moving me because they had a skill that was more than just about the dance and the movement. It was emotional. It conveyed something. It drew me in. And I'm not even a dancer. I'm like, they got me. Because there was a skill there. And as you read about King Solomon in 1 Kings, you see him live life and face times of feast and festivities and use the skill to bring his kingdom alive. And you see him step into tragic circumstances, whether it's court cases or times of famine, but using the skills of wisdom, the breadth of wisdom, the words of wisdom to come around those times. And even in times of famine, he found a way to help the kingdom flourish. Have you ever met someone like that? That they can walk through life, and it doesn't matter if it's tragedy or if it's goodness, they're able to operate. And that's what we see in Solomon's life. And it's not just the skills. It's not just the many different words. It's how do I appropriately use the tools that are made available to me. And you think about as a king, as King Solomon, as he used these tools, money, power, acceptance, and intimacy. These are more than words. These are categories of wisdom that he will explore, that he will walk through over the next 2 months as we read the book of Proverbs. He engages in these tools and says these tools can either lead to destroy your life or they can be used by God to flourish your life. On my summer reading list, I'm going to go back and read the Pilgrim's Progress. I don't know if you like 16th century literature. It's incredibly boring, but it's a little captivating at times. I'm wrapping one up, and that's next. And I want to read it because just last year we had some missionaries staying with us, and I get to play the part of grandpa when they had their little kids there. So I sat down and I read the kids' version of the Pilgrim's Progress to them. And I was like, I haven't read this since college, and it's so much easier on a child's reading level. So I may just do that again. But as you go through this, it's a story of this man who's given his life to Christ, and his name is Christian. He responded to a man named Evangelist. He was not very creative with the names, but Christian went on a journey and ended up in the beautiful palace of beauty. And there he meets 3 sisters, Charity, Piety, and Prudence. Don't name your kids that. Charity, that could go with that. The others are a little weird, right? But those names, they mean love. They mean righteousness, justice, morality, and they mean wisdom. And it's how do you take all of these things, and this is what's being communicated to Christian, is you're gonna move through life, and you need to know how all of these come together to impact the life around you with money and acceptance and power and intimacy. How can you allow God's love, God's morality, God's righteousness to lead you to God's wisdom that will shape these into tools of flourishing in life? And as a king, Solomon could have allowed money to completely corrupt him. But instead, he takes those words, he takes those skills, and he learns how to make his work, his job, a tool for God, a tool for wisdom. And he takes power, which could easily corrupt, easily be used for his own selfish gain, to abuse power. But instead, with love and morality and wisdom, he brings all of those skills together to use power for the betterment of himself and the betterment of his kingdom. The same with acceptance, relationships, community. How do I allow God to speak into my life and allow his voice, this prism of wisdom with his love and righteousness and morality? How do I take those skills into my relationships to protect me and to lead me in intimacy? I won't say the other word because we have little kids in here, okay? I didn't give any warnings last week. But with intimacy, the thing that has been used to destroy so many kings before him. And Solomon would even struggle with this one. But these are tools that God can use through his wisdom to bring about betterment and hope and healing and flourishing in life. If we look through the prism and allow that wisdom to shape these tools and keep them from being weapons. Something I learned early on being a poor barefoot college boy in the hills of Georgia. One of the first things a 5-year-old is really excited about doing is whittling on the front porch. So my dad sat me down, gave me my first knife, and he wanted me to know, first lesson, this is a tool and not a weapon. This is a tool that can be used to whittle, to bring about beauty, to be used in so many circumstances, but it never needs to be used as a weapon towards your younger brother, okay? That'll get you in a lot of trouble. The same thing, the knife itself is neither good or evil. It's either a tool or a weapon, and the difference is the application of wisdom. And that's what we see in Solomon's life in 1 Kings and all of these areas. And as we read through Proverbs, these are a collection of his wisdom sayings that he is passing on to those around him, desperate for them to hear the centrality and the need of wisdom in their life. Because Solomon knew how hard life was. Very similar to Ernest Hemingway. I don't know if you read a lot of his works. They're typically known as being incredibly happy and joyful and positive. But this is a quote that I want you to hear from him because I think it kind of guided the intensity of Solomon, who didn't read these words, but let me share them with you anyways. It says this: the world breaks everyone, just leading with that happy thought. And after, many are strong at those broken places. That's profound. But those that will not break, the world kills. It kills the very good and the very gentle and the very brave impartially. If you are none of these, you can be sure that it will kill you too. But there will be no special hurry. Like I said, incredibly positive and happy and joyful. It's what every father wants to say to their son, right? But I think Solomon knew this because he knew the world is a hot mess. The world is a broken place. And he desperately wanted his children, his son, to be raised in this hard world, but not to let this hard world harden him. And the protection for that is the application of wisdom. So the first chapters we read in 1 through 9, we hear through the voice of a father and a mother giving it to their child. Please listen to wisdom. It will guide you. It will guard you. It will protect you. It will provide for you. Passing on wisdom as a father to a child. And then in the next chapters, 10 through 22, these are where the Proverbs become just a scattering of wise sayings. Don't try to read a chapter and make it make one cohesive thought because it goes all over the place, every verse to verse. And one of the reasons for that is as a young man, Solomon wanted his young men to know life comes at you hard from a million different directions. So I'm not giving you a chapter on love. I'm giving you a chapter on the scattering of how life comes at you. About love and acceptance and intimacy and work and wisdom and money. It's everything coming at you because he wanted to give his young man the ability to stand strong. He was desperate for his young man to have these words. And then we see in 23 through 31, these chapters are more broad, more general. They apply to the young and old alike. And the way I see it, he begins giving wisdom to his child, then he gives wisdom to his young man, and now he's giving wisdom to a young man that has a young man of his own. This applies to everything, and this applies to so many of us. We have so many people who've gotten married in just the past couple of years and have come to discover that these young married couples are highly efficient. They're all pregnant. They've only been married for like a year, and we got more babies popping out all over the place, which is great. But here, Solomon is saying, I've got some wisdom for you because now you are going to raise one of your own. Will you listen to me? Will you listen to me? And wisdom is personified as a road as a way. Wisdom is personified as Lady Wisdom calling in the streets. Wisdom is personified in the voice of a king passing on his experience. Will you listen to wisdom? So as we read through Proverbs this summer, I want you to get a holy highlighter. Get a green or yellow highlighter. I lean towards yellow because it's easier to read through. Green gets a little more dark, but I want you to hear green means go. And as you read through these Proverbs, I want you to highlight the words of wisdom, the areas in your life that you want to go in. Go in these. Respond to these. They're all over this book, and it applies to so many different things, so many words to guide you in all areas of life. Green means go. Read it, highlight it. But one of the things you see right off the bat in chapter 2 is Lady Wisdom calling in the streets, calling people to listen, yelling, making a big scene. Why is she being so loud? Because she has the voice that no one listens to. You ever feel like that? I must have the voice no one listens to because no one listens to me. Oftentimes that is Lady Wisdom because there's another lady calling in the streets. And that's what we find. Proverbs is not just about the way of wisdom, it's also the way of folly. Personified oftentimes as Lady Folly. The woman Folly is loud, she is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat at the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn here and come to me instead. And you hear Lady Folly directing people down the road, the way of folly. And as we read this as a church, I want you to get a pink highlighter or a red highlighter because that means stop. And as you read through, you highlight in green what is go, what is wise, and you highlight in red the foolish way. Because what we find is that we got a few fools in the room. And I am one of them. We are all fools. We have all at one time found our way in the way of the fool, defined by foolishness. Going back to Robert Frost's poem, listen to how he ends it. He says this, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Robert knew what Jesus said is that the way of the wise is a narrow road. And there's a much broader way that most people listen to. It is the most road traveled. It is the road of the fool. And what we taught even our kids at VBS, we had them memorize Psalm 14 that says this, they have all turned aside. Together they have all become corrupt. There is none who does good, not even one. Have they no knowledge? All the evildoer who eat up my people as they eat bread and do not call upon the Lord. Do I have any fools in the room? Yes, you're all fools. I'm a fool. We are all fools together. And let me tell you something about the book of Proverbs. It's not PC. It's not politically correct. If you just got offended or you just got hurt, and if you think, oh, the pastor's here just to tell me some sweet things and make me feel good about myself, that's not the word of God always. And it's definitely not the book of Proverbs because the book of Proverbs calls you out. It is the good friend that is honest with you when needed. I remember walking into a youth ministry network several years ago, and I walked in and saw one of these youth pastors that I haven't seen in a while, and the first words out of his mouth was, Michael, wow, you're a little more round than you were last year. Shut your mouth. That's the first thing you want to say to me? I'm a little more round? And then he was just like, yeah, you must not be eating as well. Diet, not looking so good? It's like, you're a jerk. Jerk. Yeah, Mike, you must not be walking as much. You're not doing as many trails. You're not hiking as much. Just boom, 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 boom. You know, he was just like that person that works with you at the gym that just tells you everything. Your diet's wrong, your cardio's awful, you're way overweight. Stop it! No one talks that way in America. We soften things. We're nice about things. And that's why nothing gets done. The book of Proverbs calls you out. It is the good friend that says, you need to lose some weight. You need to get your cardio. You need to eat better. Over and over again, it calls you out. It calls you names. So if you've got thin skin, get over it. Because that's the book of Proverbs. It calls you a simple one. It does so right here. Whoever is simple, let him turn here. Simple, that word simple means the one who is easily manipulated. The person who is easily led away by their desires. Anyone? Your appetites, your desires, those things that you just want, you don't know how to control. The simple one is easily seduced and led away. We all struggle with that. And Proverbs calls you out on that over and over and over again. And it says stolen waters in Proverbs 9:17. Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. Robbing for treasure is exciting. It has no qualms about saying, yes, these wrong things in life feel like they have a good benefit. That's because of your appetites. It's because of your desires that you are easily led away from. Your emotions, your feelings, you wanting to be you and empower you is leading you down that road. And that's because so many of us have fully firing amygdalas, the part of our brain all about the emotions, all about the desires. That is what leads the way in everything we do. And we have poorly undeveloped frontal lobes. And that's why the simple here is often used for the youth, the children, the young. Because your frontal lobe, reasoning, understanding, forethought is not as developed. So you are led by your emotions. But I don't know if this was true back then, but what's definitely true now is we are not growing up any quicker. We're slowing down. Our frontal lobes are not developing, and we continue to be a society led by desires and you wanting to be you. We are fools. It also calls us the proud. The proud, the thick. That's what that word literally means, the thick. Originally, it was like those with thick thighs that know how to stand strong. They're not going to be moved. They are going to be positioned where they are, but it was translated to mean you're thick-headed, you're thick-skulled, you're a moron, you are prideful. And they have a certain call. You can recognize them when they're out in the woods alone, this call that starts coming out. I know. That's what the proud says. I know. Have you ever met that kind of person? Where you're trying to teach them or talk to them about their finances? I know. Stop. What about your relationships? Let's talk about some of these things that I'm seeing in your relationships. I know, I'm good. I know, I got it. Met that person? It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Their response is the response of the proud. I know. Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction, the haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 11:12 says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. We are distracted by our desires. We are deafened by our prideful voices. When you are filled with pride, you are deaf to the words of wisdom that is trying to get your attention. Don't be led by your desires, distracted by desires. Don't be deafened by your proud voices. And then it goes on to describe them as scoffers. Those who really entrench and are so set in their ways that they laugh at those who are trying to give them wisdom. I hear what you're saying about my relationships, but that's never going to happen to me. I got it. Yeah, I know, I think you know what you're talking about, but I got this. You don't know me. I'm not going to fall into it. I'm not going to get caught. That worst case scenario is not going to happen to me. Like, I got it. I'm good. That's the scoffer. The scoffer that goes beyond just not listening, that moves into rejection because they are so convinced. And you read Proverbs 23, And it describes the life of the scoffer, because the scoffer is the one who comes to the end of themselves and realizes all the food I've eaten, all the wine I've drank, it has all resulted in one big vomitous party. It has ruined me. It has wrecked me. The results, you reap what you sow, and the scoffer will come to his end. And that is the warning of Proverbs. Sin will take you farther than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay, and cost you more than you want to pay. Not my quote, but it's so true. And it's true of the scoffer. And we see so many movies that show us this, so many movies that are dedicated to showing this kind of lifestyle of someone who we like at first, but slowly through the movie, they start making bad choices and starting to turn away from things that they know that they want to do, should do, and by the end of the movie, they're just a complete wreck. You think of the Godfather series, or you think of Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, which probably shouldn't have ever been made. Or Napoleon Dynamite, he's popping up in movies now. He's still the same old fool he's always been, right? You think of these things, but you think of even like Godfather, like you think of that Michael Corleone, you meet him in the first movie and he's someone of good moral repute. He's falling in love. He wants to stay away from his family business. You're rooting for him, but then he gets into movie 2 and all of a sudden he's starting to make just a few decisions. He's getting sucked into the family. He's starting to do things he never thought he would do. By the end of chapter 2 or the second movie, he's just a pretty hot mess. And then the third movie opens up and it goes on. And by the end of the movie, he's killing his own family. He's killing his own brother. He's running a drug empire. And the movie ends with him sitting alone in a chair with no wife, no family, no kids, nothing. The scoffer. The movie was made, the series was made as a warning for the fool, but society has glamorized it. Glamorizing the life of a fool. That's everything in our culture. But Proverbs calls you out, calls you to attention, and calls you to respond. So which way do you want to go? The way of the fool or the way of the wise? So I want to wrap this up real quick by showing us that Proverbs ultimately is the way of Jesus. First, I want you to listen to these words where it says, "My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding." The first thing that you should do to get on the path of wisdom is to commit to being on the path of wisdom. You got two choices, and it makes sense, and it starts with committing to be on the right choice. Think what Mr. Miyagi said: stay on left side of road, karate safe. Stay on right side of road, karate safe. In middle of road, squish like grape. And that's so many of us. We feel like we don't have to choose. We just want to walk right down the middle, trying to stay on. I'll be a fool one day, a wise one day. It doesn't work like that. You need to commit to being on the wise side. And that's big. And men, I just want to start in the spirit of Proverbs. I'm calling you out. Because I'm saying I want us to read the book of Proverbs in 2 months. I'm setting the bar low. It's half a chapter a day. You can do it. 5 minutes. There's more wisdom in 5 minutes of Proverbs than 20 minutes on Facebook. Make a wise choice. Men, I know a lot of us are like, I don't like to read. I don't want to read. I don't get anything out of reading. Guess what? Man up, get over it, get in it, read it. Because you're the ones called to lead in wisdom. Commit to leading in wisdom. Commit to reading the book of Proverbs this summer. You can go online to our website and there's a reading plan that we've broken down for you. Commit to it. But do more than just read. I want you to contemplate the way. Commit to the way, contemplate the way. As you read through, as you highlight it, spend time journaling, writing out all of the foolish things, specifically the foolish things that you struggle with, and then the yellow things, the green things. Take time taking that in. Read the word, pray the word, contemplate the word. Spend time going before Jesus, and what you're going to find is that Proverbs shows you the gospel. the things that you want to die to, and the life in Christ that you want to find. Commit, contemplate, and finally, walk in the way. Walk in the way of wisdom. After Solomon here, like in chapter 2, cries out for the son to listen, to contemplate, and then to walk, he says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is a place of submission. I could preach a whole sermon on it, but I just want to say it to you in this easy to remember way. The fear of the Lord in this context is looking at God and recognizing that you're not him. Looking to God and recognize he is the creator of all of life, that Jesus is the sustainer of all of life. He understands the in and out of all of it, and that's not you. So looking at God and saying, God, Jesus, I'm afraid that I'm not like you. And I am afraid to not be like you. And what we find is that the book of Proverbs is a book about being like Jesus. The word Proverbs itself means comparison, to be like. And listen to this in Proverbs 31, at the end of it all, and we're going to wrap up with this, at the end of it all, Solomon and King Agar, they're crying this out. The man declares, I am weary of God. I'm weary, O God. I am weary, O God, and worn out. Surely I am too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I knowledge of the Holy One. Who has ascended into heaven? Who has come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fist? Who understands the way the world works? Who has wrapped up the waters in his garment? Who is so high and lofty that he understands everything about this world? Who has established all of the ends of the earth? What is his name? What is his son's name? The King Solomon is admitting, I didn't walk the way of wisdom. I am not the ultimate man of wisdom. I want to know the man of wisdom. What is his name? What is his son's name? And in John chapter 3, when Jesus is meeting with Nicodemus, and Nicodemus is coming to Jesus saying, I believe you to be a wise person. I'm looking for the truth. And Nicodemus asks him, what is the truth? And Jesus opens up the gospel and he says, I am the truth. And in the middle of saying this, he tells Nicodemus, I've told you these things. I've revealed these things. You're looking for wisdom. You're looking for the answer of Proverbs, who everyone is looking for. Then Jesus quotes this Proverbs by saying, I am the one who has ascended into heaven, and I am the one who has descended from heaven. I am the one that you have been looking for. I am the one who has walked the way of wisdom. You are looking for me. And Proverbs is about being like Jesus. He is the answer to the book of Proverbs. So as the ushers come forward and the worship team comes out, this is the call of communion. This is the call of the book of Proverbs. Jesus and Jesus alone has walked the way of wisdom. He is the way, he is the life, he is the truth. He and he alone lived the perfect life and walked the perfect way. And Jesus didn't only come to walk the way to show us that, but he gave his life willingly so that we could be forgiven, so that he could take all of our foolishness onto his shoulders, carry it to the cross, die for our foolishness. So in our foolishness place, he could give us his life, his wisdom, his love, his redemption. Jesus is the way. And we look at this. This is an ultimate call, not only to acknowledge that he is the way, but that we want to follow in his footsteps, to be his disciples, to be like Jesus. So as you hold on to communion, take the time to think through this song, to think through these elements, and ask ask yourself this question: will I follow the way of wisdom, the way of Jesus? Hold on to these and we'll take it together at the end of the song. Love that song. If you study the history of it, there's a lot to see about why that song was written. But a person that said, no matter what, from this point on, I am deciding to follow Jesus, to die to myself, to look to him as the perfect example and follow him. So taking communion, it drives us to the heart of everything that Jesus was. The man, the way of wisdom, who walked it perfectly because you couldn't, and who is willingly broken for your brokenness. So take the bread, break it, and let's thank Jesus for being broken on our behalf. Jesus, thank you for the work you've done. And as we hold this cup of Jesus' blood being poured out, this blood is the way he's made for us, the way to forgive us for our foolishness, and the way to invite us into what is possible, to be his disciples and to follow in his way of wisdom. Jesus, thank you for your blood poured out in your name. Well, there's many different ways that we can apply this wisdom to our life, apply the gospel to our life. One of the ways is even now, I see some of you sweating, right? It's getting a little hotter. Some wise advice: first service, 10 degrees cooler. Okay? Maybe apply some wisdom next week, unless you just enjoy the sweat box. In that case, let's just do it and have fun. Let's roll with it. It's gonna be a hot summer. Apply wisdom. Another way that you can apply wisdom, and I want to ask the ushers to come back forward. Every time we take communion, we also make sure to take up a community care offering, and this is the money above and beyond your tithe and offering. This is the money that goes out to meet people's needs and is oftentimes what opens the door for them to see the way, the truth, and the life of Jesus Christ. So as we finish this last song, I want you to prayerfully consider applying this, using what you have to bless someone else and introduce them to the life and sacrifice of Jesus. So Jesus, will you please take this above and beyond what is given to go out to change lives and bring people to you. In your name we pray. Amen.